Well, tens of thousands of Israelis took to the streets in protest when Prime Minister Netanyahu announced the firing of Defense Minister Yoav Gallant for speaking out against the judicial reforms. Last week, protesters targeted Gallant's home in Moshav Amikam, calling on him to again take a stand against them. Tonight, it's a demonstration organized by the right-wing Im Tertzu group outside of Gallant's home, this time demanding that he take tough action against IDF veterans who refuse to do reserve duty in response to the judicial reforms. Well, for more, let's go to our correspondent, Hamda Sahut, who is there in Moshav Amikam. Hamda, what is the message from tonight's protesters there at the home of the defense minister?
Calev, good evening. There were about a dozen protesters here demanding that the defense minister get involved and take a harsher stance on the reservists. Now, while they were small in numbers, the messaging that they have spreads throughout the supporters of the coalition and within members of the government themselves. They're saying that the defense minister should be harsher when it comes to reservists who do not want to serve. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking today, saying that that type of insubordination goes against democratic norms, and that because the political situation is perhaps not to their liking, it shouldn't mean that the security situation in the state of Israel is impacted or altered in any way. It's also worth mentioning that U.S. President Joe Biden spoke with the Israeli Prime Minister today. Reports were indicating that the U.S. president would voice his concerns and protests over the judicial overhaul reforms, as he has been for some time. So we can expect more protests this week from the people against the judicial overhaul reforms, more days of disruption ahead. But here outside the defense minister's home, it was actually quite quiet with just a dozen demonstrators here today.
Plenty. We see there's police still there. Hamda Sahut, thank you for that. And joining us, as I said, joining us in studio, retired Vice Admiral Eliezer Maron, former commander of the Israeli Navy. Admiral Maron, thank you for joining us. First of all, let me just get the few angles to take here. First of all, just your response for what seems to be now a serious growing trend in the IDF of reservists from some of the most elite units in the IDF, from Israeli Air Force pilots, from the top cyber units in Israeli intelligence, saying they are not going to do their reserve duty if these judicial reforms move forward.
First of all, I think that my friends, the warriors that have decided to take this action and refuse to join the reserves are doing a mistake. And I couldn't condemn them. I think they are doing a mistake. Some of them are my colleagues, some of them are my commanders, some of them are my subordinates. And I know all of them, and I think that they are doing a mistake. The reason they are doing a mistake is because that the IDF is the center of the Israeli consensus. And this is the most important part in the military of Israel, in the defense of Israel, in protecting the sovereignty of Israel. And I think that by doing what they are doing, this will harm, in some means, the consensus of the Israeli society. But I want to say one more thing. I'm not sure at this moment that any one of us know the numbers. And okay. There are many numbers here running in the air, and 400 signed here and 500 signed there, and so on. I can tell you that those that condemn their action, we have made a kind of petition in the Facebook. And in time of 4.5 hours, 40,000 reservists signed it, saying that refusing.
I understand that, but we're talking about, in some cases, elite units, people like pilots, cyber experts, who are not easily replaced. It could be even just a matter of quality, not quantity, in which will impact on security.
I don't know the numbers, but I'm not taking it as
not taking it lightly.
Yes, I don't take it lightly. I don't like this way of action. And I'm very much concerned about what will happen with our reserves. But I hope that somehow, at the end of the day, we will find a way to unite and work together And I believe that the politicians need somehow to create a system that will do the reform, but with consensus of both sides.
Well, how do you respond to those of the reservists who say one factor is that they feel if these reforms go through and the courts are weakened here, they will lose the legitimate standing that the Israel court system has abroad, and they'll be more vulnerable to face prosecution in international courts for war crimes. And by the way, we've seen such measures being taken against former IDF chiefs of staff, against a former defense minister who tried to go when she was in the UK, and they're feeling that they're concerned they're going to be more vulnerable if these reforms go through.
Against myself as well.
And against yourself as well.
I'm not
as Navy commander and as a former commando as yourself.
I am not an expert in legal affairs, but I read and I consult with experts in this field, and I can tell you that this reasonable reform is not really harming by any mean the protection of the Israeli IDF soldiers or commanders. The reason is that at the end of the day, this reasonability issue is going to affect only the decisions of the government and the cabinet members. But the most important part is that the Supreme Court will be able to
okay, for the time being, but that's not the case.
To criticize the Attorney General of the military, and this stays standing for the Supreme Court, and therefore this reform at this time is not affecting the protection of our soldiers.
Okay, at this time, you're qualifying that.
Yes.
Let me give you, though, a situation that has to be dealt with immediately. We just saw the protests of Im Tertzu. They're demanding serious disciplinary action be taken now against reservists. We're even saying or advocating this position. You in that position of making that decision, what would you recommend to the Chief of Staff, the Ramat Kal, to do right now about those reservists who are even just talking about publicly refusing duty? What action do you think should be taken?
I never will give any consultancy to the.
Okay, so let me ask you your opinion.
To the generals. No. Let me answer, please. To the generals of the IDF. But I trust 100% the defense minister, the chief of general staff, Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi, and I know that they are doing very good job. They're speaking to those pilots and to those special unit forces reservists, and I believe that they are taking the right action at the right time. I trust them 100% and I back them 100%.
But we did see a situation where the defense minister, Yoav Gallant, who protests, was temporarily dismissed from his post for speaking out and expressing those concerns, even some of the concerns that you're sharing with us now. Absolutely.
He's concerned. I'm sure that he's concerned. That's the reason why he gathered all the high level of the defense ministry and the IDF. And he was consulting with them yesterday. And I'm sure that he's concerned. But I don't think that we are in a moment right now that the defense minister, we need to give him any orders, what he should do, or consultancy, what should he do, and not to the chief of general staff. Let them make their job. We trust them 100%. We back them, and we tell them that we do not agree to any refuse to come to reserve service, and this is not acceptable. And we give them all the backing to get the right decisions because we trust them 100%.
All right, Retired Vice Admiral Eliezer Marom, thank you for joining us on I-24 News. And if you want more great content like that from I-24 News, just hit the subscribe button. It's as easy as that.